Hello everyone. In this video series I'm giving you small tips and tricks on how to improve your performance as a Condition Virtuoso in raids and strikes. Today we're going to take a look at hitting your skills. Condition Virtuoso excels because it has extremely powerful abilities on short cast times, and even your auto attack is a solid DPS skill. So when you're learning the rotation in the golem room, you will often get really good damage numbers with relatively low effort. However, things are not that easy in real fights. Basic principle is the following. In order to do damage, your skills need to hit the enemy. The most basic way how a skill can miss is enemy movement. So in the background you see me first cast a Phantasmal Swordsman on a stationary target. Then I try again, but against a moving enemy. As you can see, my Phantasm jumps towards the enemy, then tries to follow up with a Blood Frenzy attack. But the golem simply sidesteps most of the Blood Frenzy and takes way less damage. The same thing can happen to your elite ability 1000 Cuts. It takes 5 seconds to fully fire your elite skill, and the damage loss from missing some of the hits is extremely high. It would be much more prudent to wait for the enemy to settle down in a new position before deciding to cast the elite skill. The next way your abilities can miss are due to being out of range. For a Condition Virtuoso, your skills can be cast at any range. The game will simply tell you are out of range, yet put the skill on cooldown regardless. Your Dagger 2 skill, Bladecall, can miss in 2 different ways despite being in range. The first thing is that the returning blades do not hit because you're changing your position relative to the boss in a very unfortunate angle. The second problem appears when you're casting it at very high range. Daggers fanning out can drastically reduce the number of hits. The Phantasmal Warden, the Focus 5, has an extremely devious way of missing the target. No matter what you cast it on, it will select random targets in the area for each hit and fire a projectile at those targets. This means it can split up its damage among targets, making it very unreliable. If you get the Phantasmal Warden to spawn inside of the hitbox of your intended target, you are guaranteed to hit all 12 of its hits. On the flip side, you can also get all 12 hits body blocked by unimportant adds, despite targeting the boss with the skill. In the background you can see this issue in action on a Vale Guardian. The 3 Seekers approaching absorb parts of the Phantasmal Warden hits, making it a much weaker skill than it would be in the golem room. In these situations it's barely worth using a Signet of the Ether to reset the skill. If you feel like your Focus 5 is going to be ineffective, it's perfectly viable to save yourself the cast time of the Signet of the Ether. Finally, there's a weird issue with Phantasmal Swordsman. This does not happen in this footage, but there's this long-standing bug where, after spawning, the Phantasm gets disoriented by something and jumps to a random target. On Vale Guardian, it happens that the Phantasm will sometimes try to jump on top of a Seeker. If it happens, there's nothing you can do about it. With all of these damage-reducing roadblocks, the challenge of playing Condition Virtuoso efficiently is in understanding when it's safe to use your skills and when you would be better off delaying a skill to ensure more hits down the line. Now we are going to watch a point of view to showcase some of these concepts. The boss we are looking at is Matthias Gabriel in Wing 2. This boss is infamous for moving around a lot. As such, it's very difficult for a Condi Virtuoso to be effective on this boss. In the opening, I use my elite skill 1000 Cuts into his bubble. This ensures that he cannot move out of the hits of the elite skill, and thus I get the full bleeding effect, even if it wastes some of the damage. It's the only 1000 Cuts I use correctly in this fight. The next 3 are all going to be very ineffective. Second thing you will notice is that I'm using a pistol instead of a focus. In this fight there are many invulnerable targets spread out around the room. From ice patches to the invulnerable bloodstone crystal in the center of the arena, seemingly everything is going to try and absorb your Phantasmal Warden hits. So I use a pistol. Pistol Phantasm is a bit weaker than the Focus Phantasm, but it hits its intended target much more reliably. As a result, it can end up being more DPS than using a Phantasm from the Focus. When I use Bladecall, I always try to stay on the correct side of the boss to make sure that returning blades connect. I was not extremely successful at this. On average I got about 4.65 hits out of 6 possible hits per Bladecall cast. When looking at random logs by other players, Most numbers I saw are somewhere in between 4 and 4.7 hits, with the rare exceptional players that clock in at around 5 average hits of Bladecall, and these are the players who got the best DPS numbers on the boss. I sort of talked over it, but my second 1000 cuts elite skill was a complete failure. It would have been much better to use it into the bubble at 58% boss health, again ensuring all 10 hits. This leads to a new issue. Bubbles appear once every 35 seconds in this fight, at least in the first phase. The elite skill with alacrity has a cooldown of roughly 48 seconds. So no matter what you do with it, you either do not hit because the boss runs out of it, or you end up delaying it so much that you get fewer casts into the fight. That's the same as missing 10 hits. It's a fight with no good options for you, and as a result I recommend running Signet of Humility as your elite skill and using that to break the CC bars more reliably. My third 1000 cuts was better. It would have hit more often had I used it just 2 seconds earlier, abusing the animation lock of the boss at the start of phase 2, but it still hit the majority of its hits. Virtuoso is often called an easy build. That may give the impression that hitting your big skills during the boss fight is going to be straightforward, but in reality it requires a deeper understanding of the attack pattern to identify the optimal opportunities. There are many different ways you can use encounter knowledge to boost your damage. As an example, it could be good to use your Focus 4 pull to get rid of all distracting adds before using the Focus 5 Phantasm. In that way, the damage of the Focus 5 Phantasm hopefully connects with the boss and not with random adds. In what way does this slight change the optimal rotation? Questions like these keep the build interesting for me to play, even after spending many hours of playing it to perfection on the golem. I still have a lot of things to learn when it comes to hitting skills on moving targets, and I hope this video has sparked some interest in you to ask yourself similar questions. This extends beyond Condition Virtuoso, as many builds struggle with boss movement. Knowing how to connect with high damage abilities is an important building block to becoming a good DPS player. Thanks for watching this video and have a wonderful day.